Imagine a dark, damp, completely abandoned gunpowder store.
Oh, setting the scene? Sounds cozy.
Right. Very welcoming. And there's this orb-weaving spider, which is an animal usually content to just, hide in the deepest, safest crevices it can find.
Yeah, they like to stay out of sight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But suddenly it starts behaving completely against its own survival instincts.
Mm.
It abandons its web entirely.
Which is a huge red flag.
Huge.
Yeah.
And it begins this slow, deliberate march toward a breezy, highly exposed location. It locks its legs onto a surface, and then it just dies.
Wow.
Yeah. And then a few days later, this pale, branching fungal growth just erupts outward from its lifeless body and releases like thousands of spores into the air to go claim its next victims.
It is quite literally a scene straight out of a biological horror movie.
It really is.
And the wild thing is this is happening constantly in the microscopic world right beneath our feet.
It's terrifying. But here is the real twist. The scientists who discovered this mind-controlling, zombifying death fungus decided to name it after the single most beloved, soothing, grandfatherly figure in the history of British television.
Sir David Attenborough.
Sir David Attenborough. Today is Saturday, May 9, 2026, which means yesterday marked his monumental 100th birthday.
Happy birthday to an absolute legend.
Truly. So to celebrate, we are taking a deep dive into an incredible stack of sources today. We've got his biographical Wikipedia entries, some really dense academic papers on environmental communication, and this brand new Smithsonian Magazine article that was published just for his centenary.
Yeah, and the mission for our deep dive today is to explore a truly remarkable phenomenon. We're looking at how he didn't just document the natural world as a broadcaster, but how he actively shaped the field of biological sciences.
Yeah, he really left a mark.
A massive mark. I mean, he has inspired so many researchers that over 50 living and extinct organisms are now actually named after him.
50? That's wild.
Yeah. So we're going to connect the dots between those late-night television documentaries you might have grown up watching and the absolute cutting edge of global taxonomy and conservation.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because we aren't just talking about, a cute, fluffy animal being named after him here or there.
Right. No.
If we want to understand how a broadcaster managed to inspire legions of rigorous, peer-reviewed PhD scientists, we really have to look at the mechanics of his communication.
Oh, absolutely.
Looking at the sources, he completely rejected that traditional booming, voice of God narration that totally dominated early wildlife films.
He did. He pioneered what media historians actually call his patented semi-whisper.
Oh, I like that term, semi-whisper.
It perfectly describes it. Right. If you listen closely to his cadence, he doesn't lecture you. When he's creeping through the undergrowth, he talks to you as if he is, like, revealing a secret that only you are in on.
Yes. It feels so personal.
It does, and he uses very simple, unpretentious language. This just completely strips away the intimidation factor of biology.
Right, you don't feel like you're in a classroom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He makes his own sense of wonder contagious, rather than demanding that the viewer sit up straight and take notes.
Which is probably why his shows are so incredibly addictive.
Yeah.
But there has to be more to it than just a soothing voice, especially when you look at his later work.
Right. The tone definitely shifted over the decades.
Yeah, the stakes shifted. He went from just showing us pretty birds in the 1970s to directly confronting mass extinction and climate change in the 2000s.
And there is a very deliberate structure to how he handles that shift. An academic paper from 2022 by Evie Zemanek analyzes his later scripts, and she identifies this technique she calls balanced rhetoric.
Balanced rhetoric. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Well, as the climate crisis became more obvious, Attenborough had to communicate these severe threats without alienating his audience. If a documentary only shows irreversible destruction, like burning forests, starving polar bears, the human brain actually protects itself through psychological fatigue.
Oh, sure.
Viewers just shut down. They become totally apathetic.
Right, the doom fatigue. Like, if the ship is already sinking, I might as well hit the buffet.
Exactly. But Attenborough doesn't let you check out like that.
No, he really doesn't.
Zemanek points out that he expertly balances that vulnerability with actionable hope. He shows the extreme fragility of an ecosystem, which triggers your empathy, but he immediately pairs it with a pathway to recovery.
I see.
You see this perfectly modeled in his 2021 speech at the COP26 climate summit. He didn't frame humanity as some sort of parasitic plague on the Earth. He actually called humanity the greatest problem solvers to have ever existed on Earth.
Oh, wow. He kind of weaponizes optimism
That's a great way to put it.
by saying, yes, we built the machines that caused this, which means we have the engineering capacity to unbuild it.
Hmm.
He gives the viewer a job to do.
He does. He empowers them.
And this makes me think about his documentaries as a sort of like a gateway bug, a highly accessible entry point.
A gateway bug. I love that.
Yeah. A kid watches a cheetah hunt in slow motion, gets emotionally invested, and then 20 years later, they are standing in a jungle somewhere with a PhD.
Oh, it happens all the time.
But I have a hard time believing television alone can take all the credit here. I mean, textbooks and natural history museums have existed for centuries. Why does a TV show have this specific explosive impact on the scientific pipeline?
What's fascinating here is the sheer democratizing power of the medium. Think about it. Before the BBC Natural History Unit, which Attenborough actually helped pioneer back in the 1950s, places like the deep jungles of Borneo were entirely abstract concepts for most people.
Right, they were just drawings in a book, maybe.
If that. Textbooks require high literacy, they require physical access to a library, and you have to have a pre-existing interest to even open the cover in the first place.
It's a good point. You have to already care.
Exactly. Television bypassed all of that. It brought the rarest corners of the globe directly into millions of living rooms simultaneously. It turned the entire public into amateur naturalists by default.
It just ambushed them with nature while they were eating dinner.
Basically. And the sources note that for educators, this storytelling became a foundational tool. Teachers use these sequences to teach biodiversity because Attenborough has already done the heavy lifting of building the emotional connection.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, the students already care about the animal before the teacher even introduces, the scientific method or whatever.
Which brings us back to our zombified spider.
Ah, yes. My favorite.
The sources give us incredibly tangible examples of this exact living room to laboratory pipeline. Let's look at the fungus. Back in 2006, the BBC released Planet Earth.
A landmark series.
And there's a segment narrated by Attenborough about the cordyceps fungus taking over jungle ants.
Yes, a sequence that had a very specific, well-documented impact on a scientist named Jean Araujo.
Okay, how so?
Well, he was actually studying standard, non-parasitic mushrooms at the time, just normal fungi. But seeing that exact scene with Attenborough explaining the grim life cycle of the parasite, it completely shifted his career focus. He became a mycologist specializing in parasitic fungi.
Wow, from one TV scene.
Yeah.
And Araujo went on to discover the organism I described at the very start of our deep dive, Gibellula attenboroughi.
He sure did.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to push back a little bit, because this is where human psychology clashes with scientific taxonomy.
Okay, hit me.
If you really truly admire someone as your childhood hero, is naming a creepy, mind-controlling cave fungus after him actually a compliment?
Well, to a taxonomist, the word creepy is not a scientific concept.
Fair enough.
Think about the underlying mechanics required for this fungus to operate. It doesn't just eat the spider, it secretes these incredibly precise neuromodulatory chemicals that completely bypass the spider's own brain.
It hacks it.
It literally hacks it. It binds to the central nervous system to hijack its muscle contractions. It essentially hotwires a complex animal.
Okay, when you say it like that, it sounds like science fiction.
Right. The evolutionary refinement required to achieve that level of chemical complexity is just staggering. So to a mycologist like Araujo, this fungus isn't grotesque at all. It is an absolute masterpiece of adaptation.
I see.
And in the scientific realm, naming any newly discovered species after someone is a permanent record of their legacy. It is the highest professional honor available, period.
So it's basically saying, you are as magnificent as this brain-hijacking mold.
Exactly.
I guess if you reframe it around the chemical engineering, it really is a massive compliment. And we see this exact same pipeline effect with evolutionary biologists, too.
Oh, yeah. Fungi isn't the only field.
Right. Alex Clark, who is a researcher at the University of Chicago, explicitly credits Attenborough's 1990 series, The Trials of Life, for his entire career. And in 2024, Clark helped discover a 120-million-year-old fossil in northeastern China.
Impervious Attenborough.
Yes, which translates to Attenborough's strange bird.
And the strange part is really the key to why this specific fossil matters so much. Impervious was an enance ornithine, which is often called an opposite bird, due to how their shoulder joints were fused compared to modern birds.
Okay.
But here's the catch. Almost all birds from that specific era had beaks full of razor-sharp teeth. But in Paravis, it was completely toothless.
Wait, really? So is it just a weird evolutionary dead end?
Yeah.
Like a mutant bird that couldn't chew its food?
Far from it, it actually rewrites the timeline of avian evolution.
How so?
The loss of teeth is a massive evolutionary pressure. It heavily reduces weight, which makes flight much more efficient, and it signals a dramatic shift in diet, likely moving towards swallowing seeds or fruit whole.
Oh, so it's a major upgrade, not a defect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finding a toothless bird in a 120-million-year-old rock pushed back the known timeline for this adaptation by about 48 million years.
48 million years. That fundamentally changes our understanding of when complex flight and diet mechanisms emerged.
It's a huge deal in paleontology.
Which transitions us perfectly into another whole dimension of Attenborough's influence. We're looking backward in deep time into the fossil record, which actually makes a lot of sense, given his background.
Yeah, growing up in Leicester, England, Attenborough was completely obsessed with fossil hunting.
He even sold newts to the university's zoology department for 3 pence each just to fund his hobbies.
He was a hustler from day one, and that childhood curiosity inspired modern paleontologists to name some really foundational creatures after him.
Like Aurora lumina attenboroughi.
Yes.
This is a 560-million-year-old fossil found in England's Charnwood Forest, which happens to be the exact same forest where Attenborough hunted for rocks as a boy.
It's such a full circle moment.
It really is. But just for context, 560 million years old puts us in the Ediacaran period. We're talking about the absolute dawn of complex multicellular life. If you're listening to this and trying to picture a 560-million-year-old animal, don't picture a T-Rex. You have to picture something completely alien.
Precisely. It's a cynarian, which is an ancient ancestor of modern jellyfish and corals. Okay. And for a very long time, scientists believed that Precambrian life consisted entirely of passive organisms. Just, things that sat on the seafloor filtering water.
Basically just deep-sea houseplants.
Right. But Aurora lumina actually has evidence of densely packed tentacles. Researchers believe it actively captured passing prey.
Wow.
Yeah. It is currently the earliest known animal predator on Earth.
And researchers wanted his name attached to the very first predator.
That's incredible, but my absolute favorite tribute in this entire stack of sources belongs to David Attenborough.
Oh, the linguistic puzzle.
Yes. So Attenborough is a paleontologist who grew up watching Attenborough's very first major series in the 1950s, ZooQuest. He discovered a 430-million-year-old crustacean, and he wanted to name it after Attenborough for his 90th birthday.
Right.
But he didn't just slap Attenborough on the end of a Latin word. He built an entire linguistic escape room.
The wordplay is just exceptionally clever. He named the crustacean Cascolus ravidus. Okay, let's break the code for everyone. Cascolus is the Latinized version of the Old English root words that make up the name Attenborough, which translates roughly to stronghold or fort.
Okay, pretty smart.
Right. And then ravidus is a mashup of the Latin word for Leicester, which is Attenborough's hometown, plus the Latin words for life and messenger. Put it all together, and this 430-million-year-old bug is officially named the Messenger of Life from Leicester's stronghold. I mean, the nerdy, intricate lengths scientists will go to in order to secretly honor their hero is just amazing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really speaks to a deep shared philosophy. These deep-time fossils, the earliest predator, the strange toothless bird, the ancient crustacean, they are the puzzle pieces required to understand the assembly of modern animal diversity.
Yeah, they tell the story of how we got here.
And Attenborough spent his entire career mapping the tree of life. His documentary series, First Life, dealt with these exact evolutionary leaps. The scientists naming these fossils are honoring the man who took their highly specialized, often really obscure field and explained its profound significance to the general public.
Speaking of the general public, the Smithsonian article includes this fantastic anecdote about a Mesozoic marine reptile.
Oh, the plesiosaur.
Yeah. In 1993, the famous paleontologist Robert Baker realized a previously discovered plesiosaur fossil actually belonged to a completely unique, undiscovered genus, so he renamed it Attenboroughsaurus.
Which is a huge deal because having an entire genus named after you, rather than just a single species, is a much, much rarer taxonomic honor.
Definitely. So the type specimen, this massive cast of the skeleton, is put on display at the Natural History Museum in London, and the museum updates the plaque to include his name. So Attenborough goes to the museum, stands right next to the giant skeleton of the Attenboroughsaurus, and leans against the rail, just waiting for people to notice that the famous man on the plaque is standing right there next to the dinosaur. And nothing. He gets completely ignored by every passing visitor. Nobody noticed. He later joked that it really put him in his place.
That is a wonderful dose of humility.
Isn't it?
But looking at the sources, there is a much more urgent application of his name happening today. Naming a species after David Attenborough isn't just about looking backward at deep time, and it's certainly not just a vanity plate. Modern researchers are actively using his name as a distress flare.
A distress flare?
Yeah, it is a highly strategic tool for conservation.
We actually see them with the miniature orchid, Lepanthes attenborei. Botanists recently realized it was a distinct species, but it's highly restricted to a very specific, vulnerable part of the eastern Andes. But I have to ask, how does slapping a celebrity name on a plant actually save it? Like, does a logger see the scientific name and turn his chainsaw off?
It comes down to the bureaucratic mechanics of global conservation. The IUCN, which is the International Union for Conservation of Nature, maintains the red list of threatened species.
Right, the big list.
And this list dictates global conservation funding, legal protections, all of it. But to get on that list, an organism requires robust, heavily documented research. And nobody writes a global news headline about new miniature orchid discovered.
Yeah, that doesn't really get the clicks.
No. It remains obscure, it stays underfunded, and it's totally vulnerable.
But if you name it Lepanthes attenborei,
Suddenly, the BBC writes an article, Smithsonian Magazine covers it.
ah,
That media attention generates public pressure, which unlocks grant money for researchers to map its exact habitat. Attaching Attenborough's name essentially guarantees the spotlight, ensuring the species doesn't quietly vanish before it can even be assessed.
it's biological PR.
Exactly.
And the emotional weight of this conservation strategy is perfectly captured by Zagloss's attenborei, Attenborough's long-beaked echidna.
Such a powerful story.
The mammologist Tim Flannery named this echidna back in 1998. But here's the really tragic part. He based the name entirely on a single, dead museum specimen that had been collected in the Cyclops Mountains in New Guinea way back in 1961. Nobody had seen a living one in decades.
Just imagine the heavy burden of naming a species after your greatest hero, while simultaneously harboring the fear that human activity has already wiped it off the face of the earth.
It's heartbreaking. But the story doesn't end in 1961. Fast forward over 60 years to 2023. An expedition sets up camera traps deep in those exact mountains, and they catch it. Live footage of Attenborough's echidna waddling through the dark forest. Flannery actually happened to be in London when the news broke. He went straight to Attenborough's house, pulled out his phone, and showed him the footage right there. He said Attenborough's nearly brought to tears.
Because it validates decades of agonizing conservation effort. It proves that the natural world still retains incredible resilience if we just give it a chance to recover. It highlights exactly why taxonomists are in a desperate race against time to categorize these fragile ecosystems before they disappear forever.
Which brings us to the final naming tribute in our sources, and it shifts the focus in a really brilliant way.
Oh, the phytoplankton.
Yes. In 2018, scientists discovered a new species of phytoplankton, which is a tiny, single-celled ocean organism. But they didn't name it after the man. They named it Syracosira azurea planeta. Azurea planeta translates to the blue planet.
Right.
Why name a microorganism after a television show instead of the broadcaster himself?
This raises an important question because it acknowledges that the storytelling itself has become a measurable scientific force.
The storytelling.
Yes. The Blue Planet documentary series fundamentally altered how humanity views ocean conservation. When the researchers presented this name to Attenborough, he highlighted a really vital biological mechanism. Phytoplankton photosynthesize. They take in sunlight and carbon dioxide, and they release oxygen. When they die, they sink to the ocean floor, basically trapping that carbon. They're actually more important to our atmosphere's stability than the entire Amazon rainforest.
But phytoplankton are completely invisible to the naked eye. Nobody is making plush toys out of them. They completely lack the charisma of a polar bear or a blue whale.
Precisely. They're microscopic and totally uncharismatic, yet they literally keep us alive. By linking this vital invisible organism to a globally recognized, universally beloved television masterpiece like The Blue Planet, scientists elevate its public profile.
That's so smart.
They transfer the immense cultural capital of the documentary directly onto the microscopic engine of our oceans.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at a man who started out as a little boy in Leicester, knocking on the zoology department door, asking for 3 pence per newt.
A true pioneer.
He revolutionized television, ditching the booming lectures for an intimate whisper that invited us into the undergrowth. He balanced our climate anxieties with our capacity to actually engineer solutions. And in return, the scientific community has woven his name permanently into the structural taxonomy of the planet.
From top to bottom.
Literally, from 560-million-year-old deep-time predators to zombifying fungi to tiny orchids clinging to existence in the Andes.
The ultimate synthesis of his life's work isn't resting in the BBC film archives.
No.
No, I mean, the footage is magnificent, obviously, but his greatest legacy is the army of scientists he built.
Wow. Yeah.
By treating the audience with respect and sharing his unyielding awe, he actively recruited millions of viewers. He ensured that there will be a robust generation of stewards, researchers, and problem solvers actively defending the Earth long after his 100th birthday.
And that leads to a deeply provocative thought to leave you with today. If discovering and naming a new species is the ultimate scientific achievement, the final puzzle piece in mapping out life on Earth, and if human activity is currently accelerating a sixth mass extinction, how many undiscovered Attenboroughs of the natural world are we losing every single day?
It's a staggering thought.
How many weird, wonderful, ecosystem-saving species are vanishing before they even get a name, let alone a multi-million-dollar documentary series? Next time you step outside, take a cue from the man himself. Look closely at the mud, the bark, and the leaves. The natural world is not static. You might just be the one to find the next great marvel.
A living legacy, just waiting in the undergrowth to be discovered.
Immortality isn't a stone pyramid. Immortality is simply paying attention. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.